album. Let me get right to it. As you can tell from the title, we're going to talk about an album that came out just this past October on the 22nd. Waiting for a while. This is Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, a short film by Kendrick Lamar. I don't have the vinyl. Might get it eventually, but wanted to get the CD right away. There you go. I want to get to the album, so let me try to do good. I hope my reviews come out okay and not really, Brett Helm's really good at this stuff. I'm going to see how I can do, but I got a lot to say. So, Kendrick Lamar Duckworth. I have allergies, by the way, so excuse me. He is a rapper, MC, lyricist. Extremely talented. The last few years he's put out some mixtapes. I got into him a few years back when his mixtape Overly Dedicated came out, which is his second major one. Ever since then I was just hooked on him. Last year he had a internet album that went right to iTunes and was one of the best songs all year, called Section 80. Sort of a loose concept album with a little bit less of the linear structure as this one. So people are waiting for his major debut. He is signed with Dr. Dre's label Aftermath, and he's from Compton, so Dr. Dre sort of had heard about him and caught eyes on him, as well as his crew, which is Top Dog Entertainment, with 3 other rappers, Schoolboy Q, Ab-Soul, and J-Rock. And he was stunned, and he decided, this is basically, he's pretty much making it a statement that the torch is being passed on. I mean, there's always disagreements, about what Dre's doing, but in general, Dre is Dre, and Compton and Dre are Compton and Dre, so the torch is being passed. So let's get to the album. This album, as you can tell, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, short film by Kendrick Lamar. So it's a short film, that's what this says. Coming the cover right away. It's a very introspective, if you look at the picture, you almost feel a little bit like it's a little bit too personal. It's a photo of Kendrick as a kid. He's on the lap of an uncle. The photo has 2 uncles and a grandfather. And on the table, you got a baby bottle on one side and a 40-ounce on the other. In the background, there's a photo of him and his father on the wall. And it's sort of a depiction that sort of represents the whole idea of this album. Being a kid named Kendrick, who grew up loving cereal and cartoons, growing up in this environment, in Compton, this gangster environment. Some more photos here for you. This is him and his mother, I'm assuming. This is Kendrick. Now, it's an extremely good work of art. If you hear right now, there's a track playing that is an actual voicemail, and there are voicemails and machine messages that are going on throughout the entire record, and they are his mother and his father, and you also hear clips from stuff going on with the guys that he's hanging out with as he's growing up. So you have to be in, sorry, my allergies are so bad. So you want to be in perspective, your mindset has to be set on the idea of this concept of him being a kid that's 16 years old through 18 years old, just graduating from high school years, growing up in Compton, trying to adjust to the gangster life and the mentality of growing up in the ghetto, while he's trying to do the right thing. There's a lot of family ties throughout the album with his mother and father, and there's a lot of ideas of spirituality and religion and God woven throughout. If you are familiar with Tupac, pretty much it's the same idea. A lot of people compare him with Tupac, which is a very reasonable claim. And at this rate, being his first major debut, it's very, very easy to see this happening, in my opinion. I love Tupac. I love his first album, Tupacalypse Now. But for the time, it was ahead of his time then. This is ahead of his time now. First starts out with some songs. You have songs that start off with him, you know, talking about this girl Shireen, and Shireen's this girl that he's really into as like a kid, and it focuses on kids' thoughts, sex, getting down with her, getting dirty. Has him stealing his mother's van, taking the van out, not stealing it, but borrowing the mom's van to go pick up Shireen. And the song ends with the lyrics talking about how it was a setup. She set him up, and there's two guys there waiting with coats. I mean, with black hoodies staring him down. Set up for like a shooting. You got songs that go into Backstreet Freestyle. And the Backstreet Freestyle is interesting. If you didn't know Kendrick on his own, Backstreet Freestyle is its very own, well, by the title, it's the idea of a kid, of the guy doing a freestyle in the backseat of a friend's vehicle. On its own, it sounds like a braggadocio, very, you know, some style of hip-hop you'd hear on the radio today about just talking about, you know, who's bigger, who's the better guy, boasting, dropping slurs, talking about how you're better. And it gets kind of raunchy at times. But the thing is, if you know it just in that context, you won't know Kendrick, and you're going to think, oh, okay. So it's sort of interesting if this is a radio single, because people wouldn't get it unless they listen to the full album. But he's almost tricking people, because he's gaining them in that way. He knows how to, this album goes for the masses, and it goes for the people who are a little bit more particular. And it's going to fit for people who are mainstream hip-hoppers and people who are more particular about their music. Underground, mainstream, down the middle. People who want that, you know, boom bap, and people who want that boom boom, and people who want the intellectual. So, on Backseat Freestyle, you have to understand that it's in the mindset of a 16-year-old kid in the backseat of a van who's, you know, there's a little part in the skit where it says, I got these new beats, let me throw it in for you. And then this like hard-hitting beat comes in, and he goes at it. So it's a 16-year-old almost pumping his chest. And there was a really great review that talks about it. One of the reviews I read where it said you realize that it's not a guy who's trying to like be in his older age, trying to like, you know, talk you down, but he's actually a kid with his first chest bump trying to prove he's a man. From there, it goes into the art of peer pressure, talking about the things that he wouldn't be doing and how he normally wouldn't do them, but because he's with his homies, he does it, you know, when I'm with the homies. So that song was the first time, when I listened to the album the first time, it was by the fourth song, The Art of Peer Pressure, and I realized how serious of this record it was, and I went, whoa, okay. Fifth song, Money Trees, just talking about what it's during that time period, during that age where he's living, how important it is, and how he's, you know, Money Trees is the best way to live in shade. That's just how he feels. That's based on the chorus. Poetic Justice is the only track on this album that I feel, it's not a bad song. It has Drake on it, and I'm a big Drake fan, and it's a good song on its own, but it could have been a bonus track, and I feel like it didn't need to be in the concept of the album, so it's sort of a little bit too lighthearted, and just didn't have the focus of the rest. But it makes sense, and it plays its part in terms of the storyline going on throughout with the Shireen girl. And it's like the one song that's sort of like, you know, the song for the girl, and, you know, him doing his thing. And it's based in, you know, Poetic Justice, and takes a track and a sample from a very famous Janet Jackson song, so it works. It gets real serious from the 7th song throughout to the 12th. Good Kid is one track, Mad City's the next track. They're connected. You know, they talk about the idea of the kid growing up in the city and, you know, trying to find a way. I mean, now I'm sounding a little bit redundant, but the wordplay is incredible. The details are incredible. There's one little story in there that's really kind of interesting, is that Kendrick has been known about talking about in all of his past different songs, a lot of past different songs, about how he's not down with smoking weed. But he's written songs specifically about that, and how he feels like he's the dork because in his crew everyone else is smoking weed, but he's not. It gets revealed in this album for the first time since then, and he says this line where it's like, you know, people ask me why I don't smoke weed, you know, how would you feel if your first blunt was laced with cocaine? So he's a kid, he's in the backseat, and this really happens. So it's a really, really in-depth intro perspective. Now, one of my favorite personal songs that I think is a very, very smart song, and it's just such a banging beat, it's ridiculous, is by Swimming Pools. Swimming pools, drank. Swimming pools, parentheses, drank. And this is the extended version because there was a release version earlier. Now, it's produced by T-, who produced more popular banging songs like She Will, I think it was. Yeah, She Will from the new Quarter 4 album, which I really love that song too. And it became a single, and in the chorus it talks about wake up, drank, go to sleep, drank, and it's just like, it says, the chorus talks about, I'm going to have a swimming pool full of liquor and they're going to dive in it, and the girls, I flop bottles around and the girls want to play like Baywatch. But the verses talk about, it's sort of him questioning about where his life has gone to and how he's fallen into this vice of drinking and how certain people treat their drinking. So it has this like type of double standard going that's so interesting, where you have this banging beat and it sounds like it's a party type of song that would be playing in a club, and it's such a catchy freaking song. But then at the same time, you got him actually making people think. And then there's a third extended verse that was on the original cut that came out a few months back, and I didn't listen to it. I waited until this album to listen to anything. And it's a very big standout track for me, so I highly recommend checking that song out. Swimming pools. Where's my time at? Okay, I gotta wrap it up soon. The album closes out with some of the more popular. The way to close out, the real closing out song, I think is sort of his big deal. It's called "Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst." It's like a 12-minute song. It's split into two parts: "Sing About Me, Dying of Thirst," where "Sing About Me" has him 3 verses, and first verse has this, it's 2 other people speaking to Kendrick. One being an old school gangster who is a blood, who pretty much says that he hopes that what Kendrick is doing is a great thing, and he hopes that it can lead to having less people do what they're doing in Compton, but how this guy's never going to change. And then the second verse is about, Kendrick had a song on the Section 80 mixtape called Keisha's Song about a woman who was a prostitute on the street that he knew. And this second verse is about her sister, who's also a prostitute, and how she's talking down to him about how Kendrick had put her sister on blast. And the third song is about hope that you remember, hope that you sing about me, when it's just about him speaking about what he's doing and how he feels like he's trying to help affect the future and the future generations and the kids. And that's great. And then "Dying of Thirst" just goes into a very deep, sort of dark song about just, the idea of dying in thirst being dying in sin, and all the things he's doing, and how that ties into the track ending with a skit where, ties into the storyline where him and his friends bump into a woman in front of the grocery store, and the woman talks to him about the good word in the Bible, and she asks them if they want to accept the Lord Jesus as their Savior, and they say yes, and it has her repeating the prayer, and then them repeating the prayer back to her, and that's how it ends. And then it goes into the last main track called "Real," which is sort of like his realization. And then the song "Real" will end with a stop and a fast forward sound of a tape cassette. And the closure is "Compton," which is just a banging number with the producer Just Blaze with Dr. Dre, and Dr. Dre kills it too. Some people think that he was actually being, the ghostwriter was Kendrick for Dre. And Compton wraps it up. It's sort of like, he talked about everything that happened in Compton and what it did for him, but in the end, no matter where you're from, you're still going to have to rep your city for what your city did for you and how it made you into the man you are. So it's sort of a representation of repping Compton. I can go on and on. There's some other things I'd like to say. If you'd like me to continue, ask questions, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I hope it did okay and you made it through here. Bottom line is, I hope if I got through into making you want to check out Kendrick Lamar's album, then I feel like I'm pleased. Check this out, Good Kid, Mad City. If you thought it was important back in the day, and you look at those albums like Nas, M.A.A.d, Biggie's Ready to Die, Tupac's Me Against the World, when it comes to that record, I know a lot of people might say this, and it might be cliche, but I'm not gonna lie. I think that he can get better and better and more concise, but for an album debut, I feel like this will go down as a very big album for our generation in hip-hop and a classic. And I don't really like to throw it out too often, but I really do feel that it has the ability to do that if it spans well over time. So we'll see in time, in years. I want to pick up the vinyl. I'd like to get the first pressings. That's how I feel about what's going to be represented as in the future. M.A.A.d in perfect condition don't come for free these days on vinyl, kids. But check it out. Good Kid, Mad City. Rep it. Support the artist.